Madam Abeni leaned back, her gaze distant. Years ago, your father and I were partners, not just in business, but in life. We built everything you see here together. But we had different ideas about how to move forward. He wanted to build slowly, with integrity. I wanted to grow quickly, no matter the cost. Eventually, we parted ways. Kunle's mind raced, trying to process what he was hearing. But he never told me about you. He passed away when I was a child. Madame Abeni nodded. He never forgave me for the choices I made. But when I learned about you, I saw an opportunity to right my wrongs. That's why I chose you, Kunle. You're his son, and I believe you can carry on the legacy we started, without making the mistakes I did. Kunle felt a mix of emotions, shock, anger, and a strange sense of clarity. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I needed to see if you were ready, Madam Abeni said firmly. And now, I believe you are. Kunle spent the rest of the day reflecting on what he had learned. His entire life had been shaped by his father's absence, and now he was being asked to step into a role he hadn't even known existed. That evening, he confronted Madam Abeni in the garden. If I take on this legacy, he said, I need to do it my way. No shortcuts, no betrayals. I won't repeat the mistakes you made. Madam Abeni smiled faintly. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The next morning, Madame Abeni gave Kunle his most ambitious task yet. There's a struggling village nearby, she explained. It's one of the places your father and I once tried to help. I want you to go there, assess their needs, and come up with a plan to support them. Kunle was taken aback. Support them how? That's for you to decide, she replied. This isn't just about business, it's about leadership and responsibility. Kunle set out for the village, determined to prove himself. When he arrived, he was struck by the level of poverty and hardship. The people welcomed him warmly, but their eyes were filled with quiet desperation. He spent the day speaking with villagers, learning about their struggles and dreams. By nightfall, he had a plan. To use Madam Abeni's resources to fund agricultural training and provide tools to help the village become self-sufficient. When Kunle returned to Madam Abeni's mansion, he presented his plan with confidence. Instead of just giving them money, we can empower them to build a future for themselves. It's what my father would have wanted. Madam Abeni listened intently, then nodded. You've shown me that you're ready, Kunle. The choices you've made reflect the man you've become. You've earned the right to carry this legacy forward. Kunle felt a surge of pride, but also a sense of responsibility. He knew this was just the beginning of a much larger journey. Kunle stood at the threshold of a new chapter in his life, armed with Madam Abeni's approval and his plan for the struggling village. But as he soon discovered, the road to leadership was fraught with obstacles. The morning after presenting his plan, Kunle was approached by Mama Ikaete. Her usually calm demeanor was tinged with concern. Kunle, she began, some of Madam Abeni's business partners aren't happy with your decisions. They think you're too young and inexperienced to take on this responsibility. Kunle frowned. What do they expect me to do? Ignore the needs of the village? Mama Ikaete sighed. They don't care about the village. They care about profits. You'll need to stand your ground if you want to make this work. Later that day, Kunle was summoned to a meeting with Madame Abeni's key business partners, a group of older men and women who had been instrumental in building her empire. Chief Okoye was among them, his piercing gaze fixed on Kunle. Kunle, Chief Okoye began, we've heard about your plan for the village. While it's admirable, it's not practical. Helping them will drain resources that could be used for more profitable ventures. Kunle met his gaze, refusing to back down. The resources are Madame Abeni's, and she approved this plan. It's not just about profits, it's about creating a sustainable future for the people who need it most. A woman named Mrs. Adisa, known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense attitude, leaned forward. And what guarantees do we have that this plan will succeed? If it fails, it'll tarnish Madam Abeni's reputation. Kunle took a deep breath, steadying himself. There are no guarantees. But if we don't try, we risk losing something more important than money, our humanity. This is about legacy, not just business. The room fell silent. Chief Okoye's lips curled into a faint smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. You've got guts, boy. Let's hope your plan works. For your sake. With the reluctant approval of the business partners, Kunle set to work. He returned to the village with a team of agricultural experts, tools, and funds to kickstart the initiative. The villagers were initially skeptical, but Kunle's determination won them over. Days turned into weeks as the village began to transform. Fields that had once been barren were now lush with crops. Women and men attended training sessions on sustainable farming, and the community spirit grew stronger with each passing day. Kunle worked alongside the villagers, earning their trust and respect. He found himself inspired by their resilience and determination. Just as things seemed to be going well, Kunle received troubling news. One of Madame Abeni's rivals, Mr. Badejo, had heard about the project and was spreading rumors that it was a scam to funnel money away from her estate. The rumors began to reach her business partners, reigniting their doubts. Kunle confronted Madame Abeni about it. Mr. Badejo is trying to sabotage us, he said, frustration evident in his voice. What can we do? Madame Abeni's expression was calm but stern. You need to handle this, Kunle. Prove to everyone that your plan is working. Actions speak louder than words. Kunle nodded, realizing that this was yet another test of his leadership. Kunle arranged a meeting with Mr. Badejo, determined to put an end to the rumors. The rival businessman was a shrewd, calculating man who thrived on chaos. Kunle, Badejo said with a sly smile as they met in his opulent office. I've heard a lot about your little project. It's ambitious, I'll give you that. But ambition doesn't always pay off. Kunle didn't rise to the bait. I'm not here to argue with you, Mr. Badejo. I'm here to ask why you're trying to undermine something that's helping people. Badejo chuckled. Helping people? Or helping yourself? You're too naive, boy. This world doesn't reward good intentions, it rewards power. Then let my actions speak for themselves, Kunle replied firmly. If the project succeeds, you'll have no choice but to admit you were wrong. Badejo's smile faltered, but he said nothing more. Kunle left the meeting feeling both anxious and determined. Over the next month, Kunle doubled his efforts to ensure the project's success. The villagers rallied behind him, grateful for the opportunities he had brought. Slowly, the rumors began to dissipate as the results became undeniable. One day, Madame Abeni's business partners visited the village to see the progress for themselves. Chief Okoye, who had been Kunle's harshest critic, was the first to speak. You've proven me wrong, Kunle, he said grudgingly. This is impressive work. Mrs. Adisa nodded in agreement. You've shown us that wealth isn't just about money, it's about impact. Well done. Kunle felt a wave of relief and pride. He had not only earned their respect, but had also solidified his place in Madam Abeni's legacy. Madam Abeni leaned back, her gaze distant. Years ago, your father and I were partners, not just in business, but in life. We built everything you see here together. But we had different ideas about how to move forward. He wanted to build slowly, with integrity. I wanted to grow quickly, no matter the cost. Eventually, we parted ways. Kunle nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known. The journey had been long and challenging, but he finally understood what Madame Abeni had been teaching him all along. Kunle's newfound sense of accomplishment was short-lived. Just as he began to settle into his role, an unexpected visitor arrived at Madame Abeni's mansion, Mr. Oladipo, a man from her distant past. Tall and imposing, with sharp features and a commanding presence, Mr. Oladipo carried an aura of authority that made the staff uneasy. Kunle watched from a distance as Madame Abeni greeted him in the grand hall. Her expression was one he hadn't seen before, a mix of wariness and suppressed anger. "Oladipo," she said, her voice cool. "What brings you here after all these years?" Oladipo smiled faintly. "Business, of course. I heard you've been grooming a successor. Thought I'd see this Kunle for myself." Kunle stepped forward cautiously, sensing that this wasn't just a casual visit. Madame Abeni turned to him and gestured for him to join them. "This is Kunle," she said firmly. "And yes, I'm preparing him to take over. Why do you care?" Oladipo's gaze swept over Kunle, assessing him like a hawk sizing up its prey. "Because," he said, "if he's going to inherit everything, he needs to know the whole story." Later that evening, Madame Abeni summoned Kunle to her private chambers. She seemed tense, her usual composure shaken. "Oladipo and I were once partners," she began. "When I first started building my empire, he was my mentor. But he betrayed me, stole from me, sabotaged deals, and tried to take over everything I had built." Kunle's jaw tightened. "Why is he back now?" "Because he sees you as a threat," Madame Abeni replied. "He knows that if you succeed, it will validate everything I've done. And if there's one thing Oladipo can't stand, it's losing." Kunle nodded, his resolve hardening. "What do you need me to do?" Madame Abeni sighed. "For now, nothing, but be prepared. Oladipo doesn't play fair." The next day, Oladipo called a meeting with some of Madame Abeni's business partners. Kunle was invited, but it quickly became clear that the meeting was more of a power play than a discussion. "Let's be honest," Oladipo said, his voice smooth and confident. "Madame Abeni has done remarkable work, but the future requires bold leadership. Someone with experience. Someone like me." Kunle clenched his fists under the table but kept his face neutral. "Experience is important," he said calmly. "But so is integrity. The future isn't just about maintaining power, it's about using it to make a difference." Oladipo smirked. "And what makes you think you're qualified to do that, boy?" Kunle met his gaze without flinching. "Because I've earned the trust of the people Madame Abeni built this legacy for. Can you say the same?" The tension in the room was palpable, but Kunle's words resonated with the business partners. Several nodded in agreement, and Oladipo's confident facade began to crack. That evening, Oladipo approached Kunle privately. His tone was less confrontational, but his words carried a hidden edge. "You're ambitious, I'll give you that," he said. "But ambition alone won't protect you. If you want to survive in this world, you'll need allies. Join me, and I'll ensure your success. Stay with Madame Abeni, and you'll inherit her enemies along with her empire." Kunle's mind raced. The offer was tempting, but it went against everything he stood for. After a moment, he spoke. "I appreciate the offer," he said evenly. but my loyalty isn't for sale. Oladipo's smile turned cold. We'll see how long that lasts. The next morning, Kunle found Madam Abeni in her study, her expression grim. Oladipo is planning something, she said. I can feel it. He won't stop until he tears everything apart. Kunle nodded. Then we need to be ready. Whatever he's planning, we'll face it together. Madam Abeni's gaze softened. You've come a long way, Kunle. But this fight isn't just about me. It's about protecting everything we've built. And everything you're going to build. Kunle felt a surge of determination. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to face it head-on. Kunle prepared himself for what felt like the ultimate test. Oladipo's presence had unsettled everyone, and the tension around Madame Abeni's estate was palpable. As the days passed, whispers of Oladipo's schemes began to surface. He was rallying some of Madame Abeni's older business partners to challenge her authority and remove Kunle from her plans entirely. One evening, Kunle and Madame Abeni sat together in her study. The weight of the situation hung heavily between them. Kunle, she said softly. You've proven your loyalty and integrity time and again. But this fight isn't just mine, it's yours now too. Are you ready to defend everything we've worked for? Kunle nodded firmly. Yes, madam. I won't let Oladipo destroy what you've built, or the legacy you want to leave behind. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Oladipo summoned a meeting with the business partners, Madam Abeni and Kunle in attendance. He laid out his case with the precision of a seasoned manipulator. Let's be honest, he began, his voice dripping with calculated charm. Madam Abeni's methods are outdated. She's clinging to ideals that no longer serve us. And this boy, he gestured toward Kunle, is too inexperienced to lead us forward. I propose a new direction, with myself at the helm. Kunle stood, his expression calm but his voice steady. Oladipo, your proposal is nothing more than a hostile takeover. You're not here to build, you're here to tear down. What Madam Abeni has built isn't just a business, it's a legacy of trust, responsibility and integrity. If that doesn't matter to you, then you're not fit to lead. The room fell silent. Madam Abeni watched Kunle closely, her expression unreadable. Oladipo smirked. Big words from someone so young. But words won't save you when the numbers are against you. The business partners were called to vote on who they believed should lead the empire moving forward. The room buzzed with tension as each partner cast their vote. When the final tally was revealed, the decision was clear. Kunle and Madame Abeni retained their positions of leadership. Oladipo's face darkened. You've made a mistake, he said coldly. This isn't over. Madame Abeni stood, her presence commanding. Oh, it's over, Oladipo. Your time here is done. Leave, and don't return. With Oladipo gone, Kunle and Madame Abeni worked to stabilize the empire. The business partners, impressed by Kunle's integrity and resolve, rallied behind him. The village project flourished, becoming a shining example of sustainable development and community empowerment. One evening, Madam Abeni called Kunle to the garden where they had shared so many important conversations. She handed him a document, a deed transferring control of her estate and businesses to him. This is yours now, she said. You've earned it. Kunle hesitated, overwhelmed by the gesture. Madam, I don't know if I can live up to your legacy. Madam Abeni smiled, her eyes filled with pride. You've already surpassed it, Kunle. And now, it's time for you to create your own. The moral lesson. Kunle's journey teaches us that true wealth isn't found in money or power, but in integrity, resilience, and staying true to one's values. Life is filled with challenges and temptations, but those who remain steadfast in their principles will find success that lasts. In the end, Kunle's greatest achievement wasn't inheriting Madame Abeni's empire, it was proving to himself and others that he could lead with honor, compassion, and vision. Thank you for watching this story of ambition, integrity, and legacy. Remember, the choices we make define who we are and the impact we leave behind. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share and subscribe for more inspiring tales. What did you learn from Kunle's journey? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next story.